Hey everyone, so we're going to deal with not as fun of a topic, but a very important one today. We're going to talk about mountain bike helmets. I have two helmets to show you guys. The one on the left is it's a Schwinn. I got it from Walmart. I believe it was like $19.99 or $29.99, something like that. But it's your typical, big box, generic kind of cycling helmet. And then the one on the right I just picked up. I haven't even worn it out on the trail yet. This is a Giro Chronicle, so it's more of a trail helmet. It gives you added protection. Basically what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you guys the differences in the construction. This helmet on the left, I've had a crash in, so I'll show you guys how it handled that crash. And then, when you see that and when you see how it's constructed compared to the Giro on the right, I think you're going to be compelled to go out and buy, a more proper helmet. I don't want to say that the Schwinns are bad because, having it on, it was certainly better than having nothing at all. And when I see people riding on the trails and stuff with no helmets, I mean, it drives me insane because, I'm kind of, among my friends, I'm kind of like that guy that always falls a lot. Adam or Mike, if you're watching this, thanks for continuing to give me a hard time about, all my crashing. A bunch of my friends, they ride flat pedals. I'm kind of a roadie, so I ride clipped in on the road and on the trail. And there's a lot of back and forth Facebook tagging about crashing and falling and whacking my head. So take it from somebody who's taken a bunch of falls. I've knocked my head around a couple times, not as much as other people, but I did have a pretty nasty crash on the helmet on the left. So I'll show you guys all that, and I'll let you guys make a decision. Hopefully by the end of this video, if I can convince anybody to look at a helmet with more protection rather than just kind of settling for the cheap stuff, I think this video will have been a success. So if you've just bought a bike, you probably spent a couple $100. I mean, bikes aren't cheap, and accessories and stuff aren't cheap. So when you've put that money out, and then you're faced with the after purchases like your helmet, your pump, all of your flat gear, any kind of clothing, gloves, shoes. There's a ton of stuff you need to get. So it's very easy to kind of spend your budget on the bike and then kind of make all this extra stuff an afterthought. And this stuff's actually really important. So if I helped you change your mind in any way, or if now you're going to consider something a little bit beefier, a little bit more, I guess, a little bit better engineered, leave me a comment down below. But let's kind of dive into these, and we'll see the sides, the back, and then the inside. All right, guys, so we're gonna start with the Giro. So I have a little pointer. I'm gonna point out a couple of differences to you guys. The first and foremost is the MIPS. So the way that this works is you have basically pivots. You have 1, 2, and then there's 2 pivots up here somewhere. I believe they're here. So what this allows it to do is when you put the helmet on, your head goes inside of this kind of plastic liner, and this liner kind of floats. So it's elevated. So the helmet is basically mounted to the liner. So what this allows it to do is, if I'm going to grab this piece, it allows this whole assembly to kind of float a little bit. Maybe you could see that, the pivoting action here. So what happens is when you're wearing this on your head, if you like roll and fall off the bike, normally the impact would simply absorb. You would hit the side of your head, for example, and it would kind of twist your neck. So what it would do in this case is it has a little bit of extra cushion here. I can't, again, I'm filming this on my iPhone, so I can't do a great job demonstrating it. But if you guys look up how these MIPS liners work, I think you guys are going to be believers in them. The other nice thing with this helmet is these deep air pockets. So or air grooves, I should say. So when the air comes in, I'm going to try and use my poker here. When the air comes in, I can't do it, of course. When the air goes in here, there's a deep channel in here. So when you put the helmet on your head, what ends up happening is the air kind of flows over your head, because it's, again, the helmet's elevated. So I mean, I can, I could stick my finger through these. That's how deep they are. And this is all, this is all space for airflow. Same thing in here, same thing in here. So the great thing with this is, you put this on. This isn't a helmet that has a ton of holes in it, but you're gonna stay nice and cool all day. By comparison, let's take a look at the inside of the cheaper helmet. So this is your Schwinn. Couple notable differences. I mean, for one, there's no MIPS liner. None of these. I don't believe any of these cheaper helmets will have the liners. And for what I found, for the protection I wanted, and for the price I wanted, I ended up paying $80 for the other helmet on sale with the MIPS. So that was the least expensive thing that I found that had that liner. They kind of fit, the riding that I was going to do. The other thing to note about these is they're not elevated. They just sit on top of your head. So I have pretty, not long hair, but I have, I guess, longer hair than most. And when you put this on, because these channels here for this airflow, they're only, let's peel this back. I mean, they're tiny. Like, this is, it's pretty pathetic. It's almost like an accidental indentation. So when you put this on, what happens is my hair, at least for me, my hair ends up plugging the holes. So what I get is I get direct airflow to spots of my head, but I get no airflow over my head. So I end up being absolutely covered in sweat, uncomfortable. And the other bad part about that is, when your head is hot, it's going to drip in your eyes. And sweat in the eyes is not good. It's very kind of it's a burning, itching sensation. So if you are going to settle for one of these, put it on and just try and kind of insert your finger through the hole and see if you can, see if your finger kind of butts into your head, or if you can run your finger on top of your head. And then that'll kind of tell you, how deep those channels are. You can get an idea of how much airflow you're going to get doing that. So I mean, big difference between the safety and the cooling aspect of these two, but there's a lot more to it than that. So let's keep going. All right, so let's look at the side. So I was watching a video the other day, actually when I was shopping for the Giro, and one YouTuber had said, all road and mountain bike helmets are the same. The only difference is the visor, and that could not be further from the truth. So I'm going to show you guys now the outside perspective of how these are different. So I'm going to use my little poker. So what you have here on this Giro, you have this, which is, try and lift it up. So this is going to be the spot that covers your temple. And if you guys aren't familiar with your anatomy, your temple is basically directly behind your eye. So if you fall and hit your temple, it's a very kind of a soft spot of your skull. So you really want to have this covered. This gives you a ton of protection for your temple. If you look at pictures of people wearing these, you can see, and then this notch is kind of where your ear would go. So it goes over the temple, and then this cutout here is for visibility. It's for goggles, things like that. By comparison, this has none of that. So this is just basically, it's almost like they use like one mold to make all of these, kind of like that YouTuber had said. And then, they just kind of stick a visor on their quote unquote mountain bike helmet, then they don't stick a visor on their road helmet. The other difference is just, the quality of the material. So this is styrofoam. I'm going to use the soft side of my handle, but this is basically styrofoam with cheap, crappy plastic on it. I took a crash on this thing, so let's see if we can get it to focus, and you'll be able to see, hopefully. This plastic is incredibly thin. It's very cheap. Yeah, you can get a great idea of it. So this is really just for show. Whereas the plastic on this helmet, and again, I'll use the soft side because I don't want to scratch my new helmet, God forbid. This thing, it has a much more sturdy feel compared to. So that's going to be a difference, and it might not be a difference Aesthetically, I mean, you know, I guarantee if you painted both helmets black, they would probably both look fine. And truth be told, I mean, this is not your, you know, like your entry level mountain bike helmet. This is more of a trail helmet, so you're not going to see cross country guys and guys that are kind of riding, you know, all day wearing something like this for just because of weight, and you know, it doesn't get all the airflow that something like this could if it had the proper ducting in here like this does. But let me show you guys the biggest difference of all. Like I said, I had a crash, so I'm going to show you guys the back. I'm going to show you guys how this coped with it, and then I'll show you guys why something like this would have saved me from what ended up being a week-long headache. Let's start this video on a comical note, because when I put pictures of this up, everybody said that this looked like a sloth, and it kind of does. But let's talk about the damage that happened here. So like I said, when I fell, I basically, you know, I rolled forward. Imagine somebody doing a front flip, kind of landing on their head, their neck, and their back in that kind of rolling fashion. It's, you know, it's probably the worst way to land. So the good thing is, you know, I didn't crack my skull. The bad thing is I had tons of headaches for about a week. I had neck pain, I had back pain, I couldn't get up from chairs, I couldn't sit down. I was basically, you know, I felt like a 90-year-old man inside of a 28-year-old body. So this helmet, and you know, I don't know if they're supposed to crack like this, but basically when I fell, the impact came, the first spot I hit was the top of my head, so it pressed here, and then as I rolled, I must have hit the back of my head, and these holes are just from my cats chewing on this. These aren't from the crash, but basically the entire back of this helmet cracked because it's just styrofoam. So you know, any additional impacts I would have had after the fact, they would not have. This helmet would have done, you know, nothing to protect me. So I was lucky that I fell and I only hit my head once. If I had, you know, done a tumble and kind of whacked my head a couple times, things might have been a little bit different. So the problem with this is, like I said, it's bare styrofoam, and then it has this crappy plastic on it, which this helmet's going in the trash. So I'm just going to show you guys. This is, you know, I don't know what this is. It's just purely for style, but all that's under here is just more foam. So you're basically wearing a styrofoam lid with nothing else. I'm gonna see if I can peel this entire liner off in a minute after I review the Giro, and we'll see if I can find any other damage in there, because like I said, I did initially land on the top of my head. I haven't pulled this thing apart yet. I only noticed this damage in the back, so we'll see if there's anything else in there. But in the meantime, let's look at the back of the Giro. Obvious difference. I'll put them side by side. You can see with the Giro, the entire back of your head is covered, and again, it has the same, you know, tough liner here versus crap. So results would have been different. This, you have a lot more protection for the back of your head. I could almost guarantee that if I had done the same spill, it's never a good idea to reuse a helmet after a crash, but I guarantee that after this crash, this helmet would not have fallen apart like this. And if I did have, you know, a multi-impact accident, it would have been fine for that entire accident. It would not have compromised the helmet like this. You know, part of the problem is the fact that this is bare styrofoam and this is reinforced. The other problem is just the general shape of it. This helmet is not, you know, I wouldn't say this is for trail use. I would say, you know, if you're riding like gravel paths or stuff like that, not even cyclocross. I mean, I would say, you know, gravel, and, you know, if you're doing recreational riding. But again, you know, what's saving, you know, $50 worth? Is it worth, you know, is it worth your health? Is it worth your life? Everybody makes these mistakes initially, and, you know, and I did the same thing. I feel like I got a little bit lucky here, and I kind of learned a lesson. So that's all I'm trying to show you guys today is just, you know, it's not always marketing hype. It's not always, companies just trying to sell you, more crap that you don't need. When it comes to things like this, there's a very clear-cut difference in the construction and, what the benefits are for you. So whatever kind of riding you're doing, and if you don't think you're going to fall, I hate to break it to you, but at some point you're going to fall. It might not be your fault. It might be at speed. It might not be at speed. There's been tons of falls that I've taken at speed when I'm kind of pushing myself and I'm going through corners. There's been falls I've taken when I'm, coming to a stop and somebody stops short in front of me. Again, I am clipped in, but sometimes you just lose your balance. And you never know. I mean, it could be, it could be a car, it could be a runner that cuts you off. You have to think about all these things, and I don't think you can ever go too crazy on protection. So while you might not need a helmet like this with this kind of coverage in the back, there's other models I tried from Giro, like the Hex and the Zen, that had the back was more open like this, and the whole helmet was lighter weight. It wasn't as enclosed. Like this is, it's almost like a melon, but it had the same protective, plastic hard material holding it together. So it's not just bare styrofoam. So if you have a crash like this, you still have the same protection as you do from this. So I'll show you guys one more thing. I'm gonna rip the rest of the liner off, and I'll show you guys inside, and then I'll give you guys my end conclusions. So it looks like this helmet actually, well, at least the top part of this helmet didn't do too badly. I think that's because most of the impact was absorbed back here where everything broke. So when I hit the top of my head, this cracked, and that absorbed the impact. But just to show you guys how these are made, it's a piece of styrofoam, which it is pretty hard. It's a pretty hard material, but again, I mean, I don't necessarily know if harder is better, because it's supposed to have some impact resistance. So I mean, this thing is just pretty hard. It's pretty hard to put a dent in it. I'm using this as like a knife sharpener. So it's pretty hard material, but the most disappointing part is this. This is the shell, or what appears to be a shell, what tries to look like a shell on most helmets. This is just fashionable garbage. This is not going to hold the helmet together in any way in the event of a crash. So just think about your safety and stuff like that. I'm a believer that everybody's going to go down at some point, so better be a little safer than sorry. Thanks, guys. If you have any questions, if there's anything I missed, let me know. I will make another one of these for road helmets, because I had a department store one of those, and I got a decent one. So I'll show you guys the differences in like construction and things like that. But don't buy these cheap, unsafe, potentially life-threatening helmets. It's not worth it. Thanks, guys. Be safe.